There's a dearth of parking outside because there's so much going on. I have a full attendance at my curriculum meeting, and we have a full agenda as well. I'm going to get started. The first item on the agenda is a high school update, and Dr. Higgins is here. Thank you, Dr. Higgins, for joining us. It's all yours.
Sure. We want to talk about exams?
Yes.
Okay. So what you have in front of you is a quick little handout, a draft handout of update on final exams at the high school. This is something that we've been talking about in this committee for a little while now, so I can give you a little background. The question came from the committee a couple of, I would say, maybe a year ago, a little
Exactly
over a year ago.
After the final exams
Yep, a little over a year ago, about some concerns that the committee was hearing that students were taking final exams and failing classes because of that. We started to look at data from the 2022-2023 school year final exams, which was presented to the committee in the past. And we were able to compare them with numbers that we took from 2023-2024 after some slight changes that we made in the high school. So if you look at the second slide there, what exactly has changed at the high school between 23 and 24. We did have a decrease in required school and subject credit. So you'll see that students are required to take 120 credits instead of 130. There's one less required math class and one less required science class. That does affect the way students approach final exams. So that's definitely a change that we think was causational. You have waivers were introduced after the 23 school year. Prior to that, we did kind of have open enrollment for students to take any kind of level classes they want and attempt those levels. We at the high school instituted stronger prerequisites for our classes and a waiver system for parents who wanted their students to kind of reach for a higher level, of course. But what we saw was a lot of students were staying at levels recommended by teachers, even though we did see some waivers, but those numbers changed from year to year. And we also reduced the weight of the final exam between the 23 and 24 school year. That weight went from 16% to 12%, correct? Right, 16 to 12, yes. I know we talked about a bunch of different numbers. So if you look at the third slide, which is on the back of your handout, you can see that we have comparable numbers between the 23 school year and the 24 school year. You'll see that even though the total number of exams in 2023, which was 14,636, as compared to the total number of exams in 2024, which were actually less exams, even though we had a higher enrollment. The number in parentheses there is enrollment for the year. And that is due to a lot of different things. Number one, the only exams that we used for this evaluation were exams that were taken, that were completed, and that were graded. So anybody that was in an exemption, any senior that got senior exemption did not get evaluated in this. Any student that did not take the exam did not get evaluated. So if you got anywhere between a 1 and a 100 on an exam, then you were put into the evaluation. So that's why those numbers are a little different. You can see that the total numbers failed, exams failed. The percentage went down from one year to the next. From 2458 to 2162. So we're about 15% where we were at almost 17% the year before. What is very interesting is one of the things that popped out here was, if you go to the last one, the last bullet there, the original question was how many students failed a course because they failed the final. That original number was 49 students. I'm sorry, that original number was 49 exams, not students. Think about students are taking between 5 and 8 exams. So it's 49 exams. It doesn't necessarily mean it's 49 students. In 2024, that number went down to 29. So that number did get reduced. But what you did see is, again, with numbers, we were kind of comparing apples to oranges here a little bit. So you'll see fluctuation in numbers. You'll see that in the bullets before that, The number of students that were failing the course prior to the exam in 2023 was 263. In 2024, it was 343. So last year, you had a greater number of students going into the final exam with a failing grade. But what that means is that grade that they got on their final exam actually helped them pass the class.
Yeah.
So overall, if you look at the next slide, with the small changes, less students are actually failing the course for the year. Which, you know, in the end is really what, it's not all about grades, we know that, but in the end, you don't want to set students up for failure. The number of overall failures decreased in every content area, except for one. There was one content area where it didn't decrease, but it was marginal, it was pretty close. The final exams,
Dr. Higgins,
Yeah.
what content area is that?
I don't want to say.
Okay.
I don't, and I'm not being rude, I just don't want to say, because one, we really haven't delved into this with the content supervisors yet, so I don't want to surprise them in front of everybody. But number two, we are continuing to work with not only content area, but different courses and different teachers. And a lot of that is really is draft work that we keep in-house that I would rather not talk about in
That's fair.
public at this time. So final exams actually increase the number of students passing the class, like I said. However, it does mean that a greater number of students were failing the class prior to the exam, which is not necessarily a great thing, but the final exams are helping them. Like I said, we will continue to look at individual students and teachers and subject areas as a regular occurrence in the high school. And as building administration, we will work with department supervisors to identify any specific concerns in the departments. So as you can imagine, there are 2,600 kids that are taking the exams. There's probably 2,600 different examples of why a student gets a certain grade on a certain exam. So we can look at these numbers holistically, but at the end of the day, when we break things down individually in students, one of the reasons why we use Linkit, we can really identify what certain concerns are and certain issues are. I mean, that's an overview of where we are with the data, but we will continue to look at them in small numbers within the high school.
Thank you, Dr. Higgins. I personally had been waiting for this because I was part of the conversation that started a year ago, and I wanted to close the loop on that. The goal definitely was to enable student success. You're right, it's not about the grade, it's about making sure that throughout the year, no matter what their performance, we're not using the final exam to fail them. We're using the final exam as an opportunity for them to put in more work, have enough indicators about how much work they need to put in, and then improve the performance. So that last bullet on your third slide is showing that we made a little progress there, that, you know, the more students that, you know, pass the course because of that final exam, like you said, than the previous years where they were only failing and continuing to fail.
And to talk about that again, looking at those 29 students had, you know, low Ds, right? Yeah, they had a 65 or they had a 66 and it's indicative of the.
And in the data set between, I want to make that clear, in the data set between those 2 years, almost a quarter is a different set of students, right? 3 grades may be the same group of students, a quarter is that freshman group that came in and the senior that went out. There is variables here. Our goal only is to make our system such that we are empowering students with better opportunities to succeed. And to that effect, one of my questions, and it kind of builds to your report here, is that we want to make sure that final exams gives them the opportunity to work on things that over the year they might have been failing those tests, but making sure that by the time final exam rolls out, they're ready with that topic and they're able to perform better. I'm still hearing chatter, and I don't normally look at Facebook to govern, but my attention was drawn to that just recently, 4 weeks ago, where parents are complaining again about not getting back tests. And I know that we've discussed this here, and we've said that it's a policy that we will give back tests so that the students can use that to improve their performance. But I think it's a variably implemented policy as such. And when you are looking when you're diving deeper with departmental supervisors and the specific concerns, my ask from this committee would be to look at the policy again. How are, through the tests that happen throughout the year for different topics, how are we improving the students' chances to success? Are we giving them the test to use? If they perform badly, are they able to take that to a tutor? Are they able to work on that? I understand final exams, and we had this really lengthy discussion, but it's about the regular tests, right? That the students are giving to understand their weak points. From what I'm being told, not every teacher is getting that test. And the way the teachers handle the policy is different. And as a result, some students are lucky enough to use those tests to do better. Others are not. And so we need to make sure that across the district, we are following a policy that enables.
Other than final exams, the test should.
Other than final exam, which we agreed that
Yes.
it's a lot of labor, but with regular tests, we can always come up with a better strategy that enables student success. I want to open it up to questions to the committee members. Yes, please, Charlie.
Yeah, well, I mean, this looks, and I want to commend it, it looks very good. My only concern is that whenever a child does poorly, a student does poorly on any kind of a quiz or exam, it gives you an opportunity to take a look at that specific skill. I mean, if you look at math, for example, you can identify, even on a final exam, that the child didn't master them. The student didn't master that specific skill. So, do you do a correlation to identify those specific skills that gives you an opportunity to look at that skill and see how many students failed or didn't do well in that particular area? And how do you go about to remediate it so it doesn't happen again? Those are just, those are things we did. And we, I'm talking about eons ago. That's my question.
So yeah, we do that on two different levels, right? There's a classroom level to that, working with teachers and the feedback that they're getting from their students and who's doing well on what areas. We do that on a school level with map testing. And I know, Dr. Lehman may be able to speak to it, or the supervisors may be able to speak to map testing a little better.
You only do that in science and language arts, I believe, at the high school.
The map,
I mean,
like parts and map.
Math and language arts. And that testing breaks down those skills tremendously for teachers to focus their instruction, their differentiated instruction in the classroom on those individual skills.
So teachers are getting feedback in terms of where they're not doing well, or perhaps the students are not doing well, and given that information so they can make adjustments in the way they approach the subject, or what areas need more concentration
That's
in the
correct.
future. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No questions. Thank you so much, Dr. Higgins. My only ask would be that we do this again next year so that we can keep a year-over-year comparison. Sure, there's a lot of work in this for you, but it only helps us work towards our common goal, student success.
Well, I will publicly thank all of those involved, especially Ms. Weiss, who's been working very closely with me on this. She's a numbers cruncher, and she's very diligent in her work, and I appreciate everything that she has done to help me.
Thank you to you. Thank you to Ms. Weiss and your entire team. The next item on the agenda is, we're so happy to have you here, Mr. Feldman, is the technology plan for the district. I'm really excited to hear this.
Sure, it's nice to put a face to the name.
Oh, well, I've been seeing him since my oldest was 4 years old, so he hasn't aged though. I have.
Not yet. So I left a few copies, hard copies there for you to look at. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Chanley and Dr. Lames for their support in this document. This document started back in early spring of last year. There's been a lot of help, a lot of support, whether it's the K-12 supervisors and the professional development team contributed a lot to it as well. And it was a good experience for my department, myself, just to see really overall how much technology and the department itself, and not just the department, but the staff and teachers were involved in technology and how big the scope actually was. The arms of technology really touch almost every classroom and, every period. And every student and every staff member every day. And we really saw that as we went through this. And I'm not gonna go through every slide, for 5 minutes each, I think there's about 75 or 80 of them. But I'll touch on some of the most important subjects that, I think we should at least discuss or look at. Okay. So, the vision of technology, is always going to surround the students and staff to give them the opportunity and the device, to be able to perform their job. Not only with that, what goes along with this is our large network and our infrastructure. We'll discuss how many devices and how much is going on in the network daily, but, the main goal, that really your network is as good as the equipment that you have. And, I'm lucky enough to be able to have the support, from administration to be able to put these devices into play, whether it's a firewall, whether it's access points, whether it's a server to make Genesis faster. We have put a lot of that stuff in place over the last few years, and we'll get more into that. But one of the things I'd like to touch on is how we can continue to develop the curriculum for our learners, which inspires skills and knowledge, for innovative thinking and digital fluency. And we'll discuss more of that as we go along. The infrastructure, believe it or not, we have over 10,000 devices here in the district between our buildings. And that can be a Chromebook, an iPad, an access point, a printer, this camera right here, a projector, they're everywhere. And if you go into a classroom, you'll see devices, for students, for staff, for any type of custodial workers have their devices. Every staff member has some type of connection to a device. Our network is considered a hub and spoke where, all the schools come back here, to touch base with our home router, and then we go out to Comcast, to get our internet. We have about 5,000 devices a day that connect wirelessly, and we have about 300 access points. So if you think about that, that's a lot of access points. Every building in the K-5 has one, or every room has one. So we are really, anywhere you go in a building, you should have access to the wireless network. In the summer of 2023, we installed a brand new, VoIP phone system, and it replaced a very old digital system. And that was done last year, so all of our buildings now have this new system. And we've also recently upgraded our bandwidth, to 7 gigabytes out to the internet. We were at about 3 gigabytes, and that really gives us the bandwidth to be able to handle all the traffic that's flowing through our network. So this just discusses some of our internet, basically at a high school of 6,000 megabytes. I won't get into all the technical boring stuff, but that's a lot. We only hit about 1.5, so if we hit about 6 gigs out to the internet, we only hit about 1.5 between our busy times of the day. So you want to have a huge buffer for a lot of reasons, but that gives us a lot of bandwidth, to be able to stream video, to be able to access internet pages, to really do whatever we need to do. 3 of our buildings share internet. They're listed there: Applegarth, Oak Tree, Barkley, and Brookside, and the high school and the middle school. And all that means is that they're connected, and they basically come back to the high school with one connection. That saves money in the long run to be able to do it that way. You're not paying for extra equipment at those schools. This chart just discusses the speeds out to the internet. As you can see, in 2020, we were much slower, only 200 megabytes out to the internet on our K through 5s, and we're up to about 1,000 now. That's really helped in testing. When we first started NJSLA testing and tried to test, we would run into some issues with it getting overburdened and the network going really slow. Over the last 2 years, we've really had no issues with that. It's been a big help. This just discusses the phone system, how we're now using a voice over IP, which is basically now an internet voice system. We were using a digital system, and there's a lot of extra features that we're able to do. Automated emails and phone calls when there's 911s to specific staff members. We get emails when a voicemail comes to our mailbox. We have redundancy across the system, and we're able to troubleshoot it remotely, all things that we weren't able to do with the old system. I expect this system to last 10 to 15 years, which is definitely worth the money when comparing it to a cloud-based system where you pay licenses each year. The nice thing about this system is we made the payments, and we don't have to pay a yearly licensing fee, only a few dollars for a program called Rainbow that is maybe a couple $100 for some of our administrators. But other than that, it's pretty much hands-off. So that was one of the reasons we chose this system other than a cloud-based system. Plus, we just have so many phones and you have to pay a license per phone. And if there's any questions regarding this, I'll be glad to, answer them during the meeting or after the meeting or, because I know it's a lot. I won't touch on the phones anymore, but you can see how many phones we have across the district, 856 phones. And we're constantly adding them as we go. Last year, we also created a disaster recovery plan, and we've already had to use this a couple times. This plan is basically used if there's a catastrophic failure of a device or a server goes down. Those are times of stress. I've been through a few already, and it's great to have a document to say, okay, this is the login for this. This is how I access this device. This is what I need to do to get this back up and running. This plan is ongoing. We're constantly updating it as new equipment comes in, but it is a plan that we do have. I'm going to get into a little bit about the devices that students and staff have. We have about 7,000 devices for student use throughout the district. iPads, Chromebooks will make up most of them. We don't have as many laptops with Windows on them as we used to. We're finding that the Chromebooks are cheaper and the students are able to use them a little easier. This is just a chart of those. You can see that the iPads are about half of the devices, and obviously that's because the high school is the one-to-one with about 2,600 iPads. The Chromebooks are mostly going to be down at the K through 8, and we still do have about 650 laptops. And when we say laptops, we mean Windows PCs or a Macintosh laptop. Desktops, as you see, are not used as much anymore. They've just been phased out for student use. A lot of staff still do use them, but a lot different than it was maybe 15 years ago. So in grades K through 5, you can see we use Chromebooks for the most part, almost 1,600 of those and 700 iPads. Our goal over the next 5 years will be to just replace out-of-date devices and just constantly update and refresh devices so they're in line with getting updates and we can use them for testing. Here's the student devices for grade K through 5. This is the number of devices per school. And you may ask, why do some schools have, more devices than others? Some of it may have to do with students, and sometimes there's also large grants that some schools get that others don't. And we're able to purchase some equipment for those schools in that regard. And also sometimes it's up to the administration at that school, whether they feel they need more devices for their students or not. But as you can see, there's a lot of devices per student at each of these schools, and pretty much any teacher can use a device during that certain specific block if they need to. This is just our recommendations or our projections. I like to have my budget in my head for the next few years, just so I know I'm planning. Just on Chromebooks that we plan to purchase throughout the next few years. Typically, these numbers are driven by Chromebooks not becoming falling out of license. And what that means is once a Chromebook hits a specific amount of years, Google will stop updating them automatically, and then you're not able to get updates and download the testing applications that we need for NJSLA and things like that. At that time, we phase them out. And we typically try to sell them, which I'll discuss on the other slide, so we can use some of that money for new devices. The middle school, has the largest fleet. They have almost 1,300 Chromebooks. They do still have some laptops and iPads, and, with 1,600 students, you know, they do have a lot of devices for students to be able to use their, most of them are carts, and the teachers can use their carts in their teams. And they have devices whenever they need to there, due to some grants that we were able to get and some, a budget. We actually ordered about 400 more for them this past year. So it's a lot of work for that team over at, the middle school to be able to support those devices, but I'll talk more about that too. You can see here mostly Chrome here. Some iPads, so they do still have 200 iPads there, and just a few laptops and desktops. And there's our devices there. These are estimated purchases. Like I said, we got about 500 this year for the middle school, and then get about 200 in budget for the next few years. And that's just to replace, aging devices. Now to the high school. As you know, we've had a one-to-one initiative since about 2011, since the school opened up. We've had several refreshes throughout the years. Typically, they've been 3 years refresh. This past year, we have moved to a 4-year refresh, as this year we decided to hold off on purchasing iPads. This would be our year to purchase, and we're gonna push that off 1 more year. Going forward, the plan is to do 4 years as well. A lot of this attributes to, one, the devices are just holding up now. And two, money being a factor. We find that if we wait 4 years, we don't lose too much on our sale, and we save a couple $1 million every decade for the district. We'll discuss much more about this at a later date, but you know, this is in plan right now, the refresh for next year. Devices, obviously at the high school, mostly iPads. There are laptops too for courses like architectural design, graphics design, and a few other courses as well. So there is a Windows and Macintosh framework there. Just to discuss iPad repair, this number is pretty low compared to what it was a decade ago. I remember the first year that we had iPads, we were getting almost 1 or 2 broken ones a day. And it caused a lot of work for our team. And now you can see we are less than 100 just last year. So that's a great number right there. And a lot of that has to do with the students taking better care of them, the case being a lot better, and the screen just being more robust. These are our iPad refreshes here. These are, this is the planned one coming up. As you can see, about 2,700 students. And what you may notice here is that, unlike a lot of items, the iPad has gone down in value, price. When we first purchased it, you could see the cost here and compare it to here. What's nice is the iPad has become more budget friendly for school districts. We aren't necessarily going to purchase the iPads next year. It's definitely a discussion that we need to have with a lot of people. Dr. Higgins and obviously administration, but, you know, if we did plan, that was just an estimate on what we would have to budget. Am I going too slow, too fast?
You're doing just perfect.
Just having trouble with this. Do you mind, what? You mind just doing it automatically? Yeah, let's stop. Okay, I won't get into this too much. This is just our Chromebook report and what types of Chromebooks we have. This is our laptop refresh schedule. We also have to refresh devices at the for the staff. Each staff member has a laptop that they use to connect to Genesis or SIS service and Schoology or whatever they need to do, email. So they're all given a laptop, and we have to refresh those every few years, just like student devices. That's just a report of the type of devices we have. some teachers do have iPads as well. The ones at the high school do have them, and some of the K through 8 have them as well. That's the iPad refresh for the teachers here at the high school. They do get an iPad. The rest of the district does not. It's not mandatory, but a lot of them do have it. They were purchased by the principals or they're leftover iPads from the high school, and we do hand some of those down. So this is, we're getting into the curriculum piece, which is really the heart of all this, right? You know, what does the technology actually do? Where do we go with it? And this was I got a lot of help from the K-12 supervisors for this, so thank you so much. I'm not gonna get too much into this. These next slides, they can be read when we post them on the website. But I guess the most important thing is that each department really has goals set in mind with their technology and what they want to do with it. It's always going to be based on the applications that are used with those devices and within those departments, and we'll discuss some of those applications as we go further. So careers in technology, keep going. English language arts. If you could go ahead to the slides that have the applications that are core applications, that's great. Okay, so this is a big piece here. These are our bread and butter applications that we use every day here. It's a pretty big list and it grows daily. Teachers are always trying to add extensions and things like that. Those aren't included here. These are more our core resources that we use. Adobe, the Creative Cloud, every student has the ability to attach to that. Autodesk, Atlas, we can go forward. Clever, I'd like to highlight, that's used at K through 8. That's a great upgrade that we put in place a couple years ago. It's basically a dashboard that our students connect to with one login, and they have icons for all their different applications, whether it's Office 365 or Google or Savas, and they can click them without having to log in multiple times. It saves a lot of time for our teachers, and it's been a great asset. Destiny is used in the Media Center for K through 12. Elevation strategies that Dr. Rozelle could talk a lot about. Google Education Suite. So we use both Google and Microsoft. A lot of people ask, hey, what type of shop are you? That's like the lingo for technology. We're both. We leave it up to teachers how they want to use it. Some are more comfortable with Google, some are more with Office. The middle school tends to be more with the Office 365 suite, and K through 5 tends to use the Google suite more. Map fluency is a big piece that we discussed with Dr. Higgins regarding map testing. That's done 3 times a year, and we just finished our first window for the fall. I'd like to highlight the Rockwell Lingua. That's used for Spanish speaking at the 3 through 5 level. We used to use Rosetta Stone, but the Rockwell Lingua has been a nice upgrade change there. And if you pass by some of the elementary schools during the day, you'll hear all the kids singing songs in Spanish and working with their teachers. That's a great app. Go ahead. So Savas is used at K through 12. That used to be Pearson. That's a nice dashboard with mostly ELA and math that the students use. A lot of testing, a lot of learning on that platform. If you could go back to Schoology. So Schoology is the heart of the high school when it comes to technology. Every course is loaded on Schoology. It's updated every night. So if a new student enters the program, they're automatically added. Every teacher has access to it. The students complete their coursework. They attach to, they can communicate with their teacher through this learning platform. And it's been a great platform for our students. It really has, and Dr. Higgins can attest to that. Okay. All right, we'll go and turn it in is a popular piece, especially now that we're diving into AI and students being able to access, you know, data at free will pretty much on the internet. This program will help, you know, not only improve the grammar and mechanics, but sort of show if students are not plagiarizing. It's becoming you know, I think when Wikipedia came out, it was similar to this new chat AI. You know, I was nervous about Wikipedia saying it's gonna change everything forever, but after a while it became a great tool. And I think it is, and I know AI will be too, but we sort of have to go slow with it, in my opinion, and that's probably a discussion that we'll talk about another time.
Did you just aid yourself there, Mr. Feldman?
Oh, Wikipedia? Yeah, what was that, like 25 years ago? This is just an overview of what everything we just discussed. We can go through those. Okay, Genesis, this is a big one. Genesis is our student information system, and it's accessed by staff members, parents, and even at the high school now, students have access to it with their own accounts. Pretty much every bit of information that is stored on students and our classes are in this system. I know very well because I back it up in 3 places every night, because I'm petrified we're gonna lose it. Actually, this week I did an upgrade to it and I rebooted the server a couple times and it kept freezing and I was flipping out, and then I realized that I missed a step in the upgrade feature, and once I added that, it worked. But, if this goes down for 30 seconds throughout the day, I get a million phone calls. We upgraded the server, last year to a really robust high-end server, and it flies now. And that's something that I'm in every day, and I'm sure almost all the staff members here are in every day. There's a lot that we can use with it. I'm really proud of how much we use it now. And, I can't say more about the application. It's a savior. Okay, you can go to the next one. State testing, I touched on a little bit, about the state testing. We have a bunch, it's not just NJSLA, there's a lot of other tests involved, POGAT, Access, and DLM. When testing does occur, it's quite a big event, especially here at the high school. I can say it's gone pretty smoothly lately, and teachers have done a wonderful job administrating the tests. The network has been great. The Wi-Fi has been great. The students have been wonderful with their iPads, being able to test as well. K-5, the kids do a great job. I think it's just 3 through 5, mostly, but they use the Chromebook to connect to their testing, and that's gone really well. I can say that it's been a much less stressful project than it was a decade ago. I remember coming in and getting the testing ready, and something would always happen, whether it was the state, having issues with their servers, or us not having enough bandwidth, or the computers not having enough battery, and it was a really tough task for everybody. It's gone really smoothly, the last few years. I know, I just checked. So virtual learning was a piece that we were introduced to a few years ago, and it really opened up our eyes to, how things can be done remotely. We gave away, I think we taught over 2,000 Chromebooks. We were able to get out to students, whether they picked them up or we dropped them off. I had staff members driving their car and drop them off to parents and households that needed them. We would give out hotspots where needed as well. And I'm really proud as a department on how we were able to keep virtual learning going during those tough times. But it's also good to know that we have that in place if we ever need to go through it again. And we do have documentation on how we would distribute and get that going again. Hopefully we don't have to, but it is. We'll go to the next one. Professional development's a big piece too. Mr. Tovik was able to give me a lot of information regarding this. If you can go to the next couple here. I didn't realize how many courses were actually given for professional development, but Eric Silverman and that professional development team, they do a lot of teaching to our staff members. And as you can see, if you go through this app, there's a lot. And a lot of enrollments too. So that's great that our staff members are continuing to learn, about our different programs that we offer. And, it's a little overwhelming because as you saw from those core applications, there's a lot of stuff there. And to have a teacher or a new teacher come and say, oh my God, how am I going to be able to learn all of this? The professional development team really does a great job getting that information out and helping. So this falls under my department, technology support services. As I mentioned, we have 10,000 devices that we support on a daily basis. We're also responsible for many of the hardware systems, Genesis, every access point projector that you see. If it has an IP address, we are involved in it, and it seems everything has an IP address now. So, you know, we're constantly getting more added to our plate, but I tell our team, hey, the day goes by a lot faster when we have that. We just onboarded Linkit this year. It's been more work for our team, but I honestly, you know, we don't mind. We're up to the challenge. And we have a great group that comes in early and stays late, Al being one of them. And, we're able to do this. You have to have a good team to be able to support 10,000 devices. There's no other way around it. We have a ticket system that we use, that our staff, fills out a ticket and we're able to, get to their needs as fast as we can. That helps us organize it. You can go, next one out. Grants and funding, we do some E-rate. Some of our, devices that we purchase do fall under that. We get some nice reimbursements on a yearly basis. These are grants that we've been given over the last few years. As you can see, this one was pretty big. That was the digital divide during COVID. But we do get grants on a yearly basis, several, and we're able to distribute those devices, whether they're iPads or Chromebooks, to students for certain, you know, sections of students each year. And as you can, I think we just had a couple more that we added. Recycling and sales, I had mentioned this. We used to recycle most of our stuff, but we're finding that there is value in selling them. As you can see, there were a couple sales over the last few years of items that we put on GovField, and we're able to get some reimbursement. And this right here is the sale of student iPads, which we'll be starting to talk about again for next year. Web filter, very important piece here. This is a state law that we would have to have one, but we would have one anyway due to the amount of internet usage in this district. The filter is every time a student or a staff member accesses the internet, it runs through this filter. We have a filter, it's in the cloud, it's no longer in a device in our back room, which is great. It runs through a proxy cloud, and the website's either given access or not. And there's a lot of great reports that we can go in and look at, and you can see how much usage of the internet it is. But this is a great filter, and parents and staff can feel safe that the students are accessing appropriate websites. This is the last slide. So this is just our relationships and partnerships. Mr. Maralda works on that a lot, but we've been doing a lot with trying to grow our Facebook and Instagram and our website and our communication with the public. And Mr. Maralda has done an amazing job with that, in my opinion. And we're going to continue going. And the next step is our new website that we hope to be able to push out by the end of the year. We're excited about that. And I'm done. Thanks, Sean. Any questions?
No questions, just, this was tremendous.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your time and effort that you put into this. This was amazing.
You still-
I mean, I have learned so much. All of us, we really do appreciate all of the time and effort that you and your team put into not only this presentation, but all of it, all of the technology that we use all the time. So
Mr.
thank you very
Duncan,
much.
you and your team are silent heroes, but this presentation helped people see. As soon as all the other board members and hopefully some of it, the public can see. It's a district of 7,000 students having 10,000 devices. I'll still say is that we should probably have more. I'm with your goal on 1:1. Hopefully one day we can do 1:1, but whatever you're managing till date, it takes a whole lot of coordination, a whole lot of dedication. I don't think any building can survive without the morning till midnight dedication that your team puts in. So thank you for putting this together.
We
It
appreciate-
really is.
We appreciate that. Thank
But
you.
I always have questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
The most simplest question in my mind is, why do we, given that we've become an Apple distinguished school and starting ninth grade is all Apple, why are we still focusing on Chromebooks? Is it because it's more cost efficient, or is it that our our teaching tools are more, adaptable to Chromebooks. What is the reason that we cannot make the shift to Apple sooner? Of course, for the funding, we could look at grants and stuff, given that we have the distinguished school.
Are you referring to like the K through 8 level with the
Yes,
iPad?
so middle school where you go right now, you say year 1 is to 1.
Right.
Why wouldn't we transition in middle school to Apple devices
So
already?
it's definitely something we have discussed. There's a lot of walls, I guess, to break down there. They're K through 5 at least is so into the Chrome, into Google. They're so used to it already. So to say, hey, we're going to switch platforms would be a big change.
Okay.
The money from, at least from what I've looked at, if you were to compare apples to apples with the same devices, it's similar. I would even say that Apple might be a little cheaper. Just based off if you were going to look at a Chromebook that actually had a touchscreen,
Yeah.
obviously you might have to get those types. But, the applications that the students use and the use of the keyboard for the students too, now that they don't have one for the iPad. It's tough to take something away from staff and students when they're so used to it. Obviously we will discuss it, and we are always discussing it. We do try to we do have iPads as well for them to use at that. So if a teacher does prefer, hey, I don't want to use Chromebooks at all, in every school, we do have enough parts of iPads that they can use them instead.
Okay. Yeah, it's good to know. Anybody else have questions before I keep going?
Can I
The
comment
other-
on something?
Yes, please.
So I think as a part of our strategic plan, one of the goals was to take a look at middle school, then elementary in terms of, and the way the high school approached this 10 or 15 years ago when what are the needs of the staff, students? What are we looking for the staff and students to do, construct, develop, create with their devices? And what are we looking in terms of expectations for instructional technology and then using that? Those will be the processes we will take as we look at the middle school and the elementary school. The piece at the high school, we've already done cost analysis and we understand the needs and expectations of our instruction with the types of devices we have. And we saw in there that the price of the iPads are much more competitive than they ever were. We can do refresh for our entire building now at almost the same price as we did 12 years ago for $1,200.
That's less. Much less, actually less.
So, and the insurance, the Apple insurance is a 4-year program now, right? So you have your free two replacements per year for 4 years. So that's, there's no cost in the district, at that point to repair the iPads either. So, when we look at, we'll have those conversations and we are having those conversations about the refresh for the high school now. We'll take a holistic approach for the K-8, but I will say the Google platform, K-5 specifically, and at the middle school, although you do see some Microsoft 365, Microsoft product
Right.
integration at the middle school. Again, it's that transition here, right?
That's the question I had. Is that what's holding us back?
No, I would say we're not being held back. I would say we are operating with the technology that we have. And you'll see some of the numbers are a little representative of, there are many students that are one-to-one devices per their IEPs, per their, 504s and things like that. So you end up having some, that data represents a global look. When you kind of really get into, you'll see that, the trends are really in certain directions. But again, I think this will be driven by instructionally. What are we looking at? What are we expecting our students to create? What are we expecting our staff members to teach with and use? And then we look at our core infrastructure, all right, the back end stuff that Mr. Feldman's team works on. There's a back end piece that supports our Apple up here. There's a back end piece that supports the elementary and middle school. So that's all taken into account if we pivot and change, right? So the device cost is one, probably small
The
fraction
licensing
of
costs of everything
Yeah.
that we use.
all the training we've done K-8 on their devices right now. We reinvent that all to be at an Apple level. Not to say we're not gonna, we will look at everything when we investigate. Just like if we were to switch here, we would have to re-professional development the entire building and make an adjustment in terms of the way they're delivering instructions, the devices they're using, the apps and tools, all the connections we have. So it's again, it's something we look at every time we do it. But, you know, it's part of our plan to kind of move forward and take a look. I don't want to say we're not committed to any direction K-8 right now, but we definitely are heavily involved in the Google Suite at that level for sure.
So what I'm understanding from you is that there could be reasons why we cannot just simply make this switch. But at the same time, you're still in the process of evaluating that 1:1 device plan for middle school, and when you get to that, you will.
Yeah,
what works best
It's about this year.
financially as well as.
This year to focus on, let's turn over and do a 4-year refresh, because Mr. Feldman had, you know, always has 2-3 years in front of him in terms of the device planning, right? So we don't want to get ourselves in a situation, if we can avoid it, where we're turning over devices all at the same time either. So we want to strategically stagger, because you want a consistent expenditure each year in your budget, which means you don't have these big hits and things. So there's a lot that's going to go into the planning piece. We're going to start exploring the middle school, towards the end of this year, and we'll start looking. But again, we will go on a holistic approach and see how it turns out. We used to bring in Microsoft with the Surface tablets. We used to bring in the Apple devices and things. And if that's appropriate to do as we look at the K-8 or the middle school piece for the next time, that's fine. We have to have a discussion about, is it 1-to-1 take home? Is it 1-to-1 remain in the building? That'll be a function of the durability of the devices we get, right?
Right.
A $250 Chromebook is not as durable in any way, shape, or form. We can say with confidence as what we're currently operating with an iPad, right? So you're looking at device turnover. If a device is broken, students don't have access to what they need to, use. So there's a lot that goes into these technology decisions.
But good luck with that. There's a long road ahead of us and a lot of work to be done. So good luck to your team. I did have a couple more comments. One was the disaster recovery plan. The DR plan was developed in February of 2023. Typical industry practices is that it's updated once a year. I did not see the revised team did not have a date there. So are you doing that?
Yeah, that is planned to start. Actually, I was planned on starting that next week. Because we did get some new hardware in there and we need to update those practices. So absolutely, I plan to update that every year. And we actually, as we're constantly getting more equipment, so we have no other choice than to update it. But like I said, that's been something I wanted to do when I started this position a few years ago, is to get that concrete document out there, and it's been nice to have it.
Thank you. It's our you guys are our backbone, and that's the backbone of the backbone.
Yeah.
So good luck with that. The last comment I have is that going through your list of code web applications that's used by, all of our instructors and supervisors. Besides Turnitin, I do not see, and I'm talking about, the whole look ahead. This is a look ahead plan. Given that AI is everywhere, there's a lot of applications out there. So my ask, and I know a lot of our supervisors are now going to conferences and educating themselves, is to put more in this list that adds to both things, to empower our students at the same time, put ethics in place like Turnitin right now does. So Monroe typically has always been ahead of the curve, and that's my expectation going ahead with the advent of AI in education. It kind of ties into the goal for this committee also.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fowler.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
All right, moving on, I think Dr. Roselle is your turn.
Okay, so I have 2 curriculum documents this evening. They are both world language grade 7. The first is grade 7 Italian, the other is grade 7 French. Very similar in their structure. Both were revised to reflect grade 7 going back to a full year of world language. Italian has 7 student-centered units of study, French has 6. The Italian units include Introduction to Italian. This is students' first opportunity to study Italian. School life, the calendar, what do you like, who I am, and the family. Like The other middle school world language classes, there's an emphasis on performance-based assessment. Students work on independent activities, partnered activities, small group activities. They are working to the novice mid standards. And the goal is for students to understand why we study a world language, to have some basic memorized phrases, and some preliminary grammatical structures. So there is a little bit more in the realm of foundational skills and introduction to the language, because it is the first opportunity that students have to study these two particular languages. French, again, the units are an introduction to French. Me, my family, celebrations in French-speaking regions and countries, my daily schedule and school life, and the calendar and weather. And as you can see, both of these documents, as was the grade 7 Spanish, students at this age are very egocentric, so we design curriculum that keeps that in mind. They get to talk about their favorite topic themselves and their lives around them, but also being exposed to culture and doing a lot of comparing and contrasting between their own cultures, whether that is an American culture or another culture, and the other countries that speak the language they're studying. Those are my two documents. Any
So the
questions?
only reason these documents were updated is because now they're a full year.
That is the only reason, yeah.
So there was more, definitely more content added.
Yes, so there was more content added, and we will take a look at our grade 8. So throughout this year, we will have meetings, we'll have articulations, department meetings, and we may decide to revise our grade 8,
Okay.
or we may say, grade 8 is okay as it is, because those are all aligned to the current New Jersey student learning standards, which are for 2020.
Anybody else, any questions? Please, it's only me. Thank you. It moves the floor to Mr. Monroe.
Great, thank you.
Actually, it's 30 minutes.
Yeah.
No, no, wait, I need.
I have 30 minutes worth of content.
We know, Zach, you don't need 30 minutes.
Well, I just usually gave the dirty looks I get from the supervisor across the table to know when I need to wrap it up. So, but anyway, just while we're passing this along, I'll just kind of follow up on some of the love we were giving to tech office. You know, in a moment, I'll talk about summer programs, well, not summer programs, really all of our enrichment programs, but specifically the summer. And, you know, when we scale programs like this, you know, often we think about how we staff that with instructional staff and instructional support staff. And we forget that we are also scaling the professional responsibilities of our technology staff and our custodial staff. And unlike when we work with our instructional staff, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you, there's no demand bargain, there's none of this is my job type thing. And specifically, since we're sitting here, the tech staff this summer, you know, when we meet over the summer, we're not rolling in laptop parts. We are doing very complex computer science things. We are installing 3D printers, many of which we just ordered. A lot of things that we asked Alan, Mr. Linzetti back there, and Mr. Feldman and the entire team to do while they're doing their traditional duties during the school year, preparing for the school year. So a lot of things we're about to talk about is loaded on the back of our tech staff and our facility staff who also works around us throughout the summer. So, you know, as we start to really move and cement ourselves as a 12-month organization, you know, we keep in mind that the tech and facility staff has always been 12 months. And we are just layering on what they already do. So, you know, it's important to recognize as we talk now, we'll shift back to the teaching and learning.
Thank you for recognizing that.
Well, and you can even see, well, many of the applications and the hardware and software that were embedded in this presentation extend into very much so into these complex enrichment programs. So, and they, a lot of times, are learning it with our instructors as the technology evolve on everything from, you know, we were just talking about installing drop points for printers because our 3D printers are so demanding now and what for bandwidth and things like that.
that it's not just as rolling a printer into a classroom. So there are a lot of things that, hidden work that we talk about all the time.
100%.
So, right around a year ago, we came to this committee with SWOT analysis of our enrichment efforts, which was limited to, summer last year. So on the document in front of you, what I did was I just copy and pasted it from the previous document and then created our most current SWOT analysis of our enrichment efforts. And I tried to make it, for purposes of just clarity, I tried to adjust it in a way that you could quickly draw your attention to some of the changes. So if you look at the SWOT analysis of our program, which included several of which that ran during our 2023-2024 school year, the first, and I would say the biggest thing that allowed us to move forward was the introduction of registration software, payment software, which was brought to us by Mr. Barandika, pretty much as soon as he came on board. And when I tell you with that, the amount of time that not only freed up with our staff and support staff, but able to work directly with parents, allowed them to get their act together, and allow us to serve them better with their planning purposes, we thought that helped significantly and also helped us track our financial statuses a little bit more effectively. So that was a big bonus. We also introduced enrollment a little bit earlier. It wasn't as early as we would like. We'd still like to announce our program of studies earlier in the school year. We would like to try to do it as close to winter break as possible this year, so parents can make their summer plans. And we continue to examine what the township is doing through the municipal and recreation department and what some of our athletic programs are doing to try to avoid conflicts. And that's going to be our big area of focus, is to really start to work alongside of our existing programs so parents have the opportunity to participate in everything. So when I talk about expanded calendar alignment and enrollment period, that's what I'm referring to. We began to introduce some high school programming at the end of the summer, thanks to the Monroe Ed Foundation, that allowed us to jumpstart that earlier than we had expected through our SAT support programs. We did receive a pretty strong interest from the high school parents that they want to participate in that type of learning. So that's something that we will continue to operationalize throughout the year. So that feeds into one of the things that we would like to do, and having mentioned last year, just to delve into the high school enrichment area. You can see that throughout, especially the last 3 months, we've been very successful and felt really good about our ability to bring on private sponsors, many of which are aligned with specific enrichment programs. And that is what we believe is the hook for our partners. All of our partners are still based out of Monroe and Jamesburg. That is not saying that we are limited to those geographic municipalities, but we are very proud that just shows us that the community is willing to they want to be a part of what we're offering. And it is getting easier, as word gets out and as our product becomes more visible in the communities. We are also starting to see the fruits of our labors as our students age through our system and start to participate in some of the more predominant learning opportunities throughout the region. We did lower the price for participation this year, very subtly, but we thought that was a nice thing to do. We ran some cost analysis. We didn't have as much overhead this year as we did in our initial year. So we did tweak our prices a little bit where we could afford to do that. Obviously, in the culinary programs, it's a nightmare trying to maintain the cost of keeping that program solvent with the groceries and everything like that. Technology is expensive, but we, coming off a successful budget vote, we tried to do our best to be mindful of the impact that, is hitting the parents in the wallet. So we thought it would be, we took had $15 off registration, but, it adds up when you got 3 or 4 kids or 3 or 4 programs. So we tried to be very explicit in our ability to kind of reach out to the parents in that matter. And then the MEF partnership was a wonderful thing. It really kind of allowed us to start thinking creatively again and listening to what constituents within the community are looking for and what they're hearing from their people too. So, we look forward to partnering with any organization, whether it be nonprofit, private organization, to help keep these things going forward. We still have some areas we have to look at as far as organizationally running this initiative, being more mindful of the calendar and how we can complement existing programs rather than compete with them. I think that's something that everyone, including our staff, our parents would look for. And also being mindful of how our programs line up throughout the summer. Make sure our staff has the teachers that work in these programs have the opportunity to go after some professional development or spend their summers the way they want without, contributing to any potential instructional burnout. I was a little overstaffed this year, not saying that we want to cut back, but maybe just be a little more, optimized, personnel allocation. When we did find ourselves in situations where we were overstaffed, what we would do is we would reassign those teachers to ESY. So we would send them down to Oak Tree, or what we would do is I would coordinate with Mr. O'Carroll and Ms. Roldan to find where there was teacher availability, where we could design some programs. That we had staff that was specially designated to assist us in the ESY classes that are Oak Tree here and at the high school. And that's something that we've been working on for a few years now and continues to get better. And we also had, we made a little bit more of a stronger effort this year to communicate directly with our ESY parents to let them know what we were doing, including curricular alignments and things like that, so they knew that there was instruction going on there. It wasn't just summer camp. This was, this was raw instruction on, and we thought that went very well. We didn't, and then the last area of weakness that I think is an opportunity as well as a weakness, that we didn't capitalize on out-of-district enrollment as much as I'd like to. We didn't market as heavily out of district as we probably could have, and that speaks to also how we can improve our promotion and our calendar, our registration period, I should say. So that's something we're going to look at, and that is going to include our high school programs, SAT prep. The high school is hosting 4 SATs here at this school year, one of which I think is this weekend, maybe even, I don't know. We didn't get one up in time for that one, but the remaining 3 SATs administered at the high school, we will have SAT prep classes in place for that. And we will invite students from out of district to attend, as they will be inevitably enrolling to take it here, so we'll let them take our prep courses. And then, so that would be another area that I would like to address. Including some financial things, I would like to look at more streamlined ways about in real time how we could track revenues and things like that. And we think we have some solutions in place for that. As far as threats are concerned, 2 areas that we are finding to be problematic from a operational standpoint. Technology costs are tough to maintain, particularly as we want to continue to evolve our programs of study. So every summer we're not redundant, and as programs and curriculum evolve, particularly in pre-vocational areas and in the really complex areas, so do the costs. And we don't want to shift that cost onto the consumer, so we'll continue to aggressively find private sponsorships to help us offset those costs, look for grants and things like that. And it's also important to mention that the assets that we do acquire from these programs, we do share with our teachers during the school year. So they're not sitting on shelves till next summer. So that helps us kind of layer in value to the classrooms. Remediation continues to be a challenge for us, not only just from a cost perspective, but also from a competition perspective. Historically, our high school has only offered in-person remediation. And we know that the kind of the model that is dominating the market over the summer is digital, is online, and is in an abbreviated and not necessarily in front of a live instructor. That is, we could probably not argue, I'm sure we probably all agree to a certain extent, or maybe theorize that may not be the ideal way to remediate instruction.
Yeah.
However, it certainly is cost effective, and it certainly is convenient for our parents over the summer. We have not delved into that model yet. I'm going to be completely honest. I don't think we have a choice if we want to maintain remediation in a manner that is not cost prohibitive. I think that we need to look at it, and Dr. Lehman and I have already talked about it, and we've jump-started discussions with Dr. Higgins. Dr. Rozelle has presented some creative solutions that we think can help us with this. So we're going to be looking aggressively, and we will make a decision and hopefully implement a visionary plan for how we can support remediation services by this winter, because we want to make sure that it's presented in time for our program of studies. And again, that is a tough one to do because we don't know who failed until the end of the school year. We're very strict on the 60-hour remediation piece, but it's in person. And that means no vacations. That means mom and dad got to get you here. And we all know that there are other options available to them virtually. So, we'll look at that pretty critically and we'll take a look and determine, whether or not, we need to deviate from our current model, adopt a new model, or maybe just say, hey, this isn't what's best for us, as a district. But obviously, we will, lead all discussions with what's best for children. What you see on the front side of the sheet is what was offered this year, including in the brackets there were our per course, student enrollment per section. So you can see, obviously, we had a pretty healthy enrollment, for the most part in all of our remediation programs, with the exception of our K-2 programs. They were lightly populated. We have some ideas about how we can troubleshoot that. That'll be one area we'll be looking at very specifically on how we think there's a market there. We just haven't quite figured it out, yet, but we'll look at that. But everything else, all of our programs are sustainable. They're all curricularly aligned, and they all feed directly into what we're trying to accomplish.
Is the first number the slots and the second number the enrollment?
The first number, oh yeah, sorry, let me explain. So, if you look through the catalog, you'll see on the left-hand side, next to each course name, a first bracketed number. That indicates the number of sections we ran. My number of times we ran the course. Then if you go over to the right column, that would be the total number of students that participated in that course. And then within the bracket would be the amount of students per section. So you could see that on average, for example, the K-2 program, it didn't work out where we only had 4 kids in one class, but on average, we only had 4 kids per class. So that wasn't, that's obviously for something that you don't consider to be best practice. But for everywhere else, every other course is right about where we would want it to be in a summer enrichment model. Anything above those numbers that you see there becomes babysitting and not teaching, particularly in a summer abbreviated program. So we like it right there. And then, so we feel pretty good about that. And then on the back, these are what we are proposing, for our, school year in the fall, winter, spring. And then we'll roll into summer, which we'll announce in the end. So you can see we're continuing with the SATs. We're not married to these names, so bear with me. And then, what we're really looking at in spring is, studying down with, Mr. Russ, Ms. Roselle, or Dr. Roselle, sorry, and Ms. McLeod and the supervisor staff, obviously, and talk about other opportunities we will have in an enrichment model. Not just for all learners in the humanities, and, remembering that STEM isn't just limited to, engineering, robotics. In some of the conversations I've had with teachers, we know that, there's a hunger out there for learning, and we're ready to look in other areas for enrichment learning. So that's the idea, and, we feel like the parents are on board. So that would be our goal. Our plan is to announce, registration and information for our club code and, cooking with cancer by the end of this week, or this next week, maybe, and then we'll get ready for our SAT, preparation courses as we go on into the school year. As far as enrichment courses, last thing, our goal for purposes of cost effectiveness and also just for management purposes, as often as possible, all of our programs will run out of Monroe High School, mainly because there's always action here, things like that, less strain on the individual buildings, with the exception of the club code, just because they're so tech heavy and the robotics are all spread in those buildings. We run those in their home buildings. So, that's kind of the plan for this school. Not kind of.
I just want to start by saying, I absolutely love SWOT analysis, but what I love more than that is when you put 2 consecutive year SWOT analysis right next to each other. Thank you for doing that. It just shows the progress that we're making. It puts it in black and white where we need to work on in the future years. Thank you for doing this again, second year in a row that I've been seeing this impressive document. Dr. Lehman, if this document and Mr. Feldman's document can go on the attachments, executive attachments for this meeting so that the other board members can see it too, because I know last time a lot of board members did not see the SWOT analysis.
I'll clean up the numerical figures, because now that I'm looking at it, it is a little bit.
It is confusing, so thanks for asking that question. My guess for the K through 2 lower enrollment is that parents for kids that age are looking for something that can take care of them longer. And we are not running.
And we started it too early, to have some feedback,
Right.
8 AM and stuff like that, so.
Right. And the only question I have is BITE a different co-program?
Yeah, so we're also aware that, a lot of our patrons, Byte is the name of the robot that is logical is, so we want to be very clear that just many of our customers are repeat customers.
Okay.
And we want to make sure that, they're aware that they're not coming back for the same thing. So what's nice about these programs is there is repeatability. And if a student is really into this, they have the opportunity to come back and have a different experience. The programs are also set up to where even if they came back to the same program, they would have a different experience, assuming that they progressed in their skills. But everything that in this particular program, risk of overcommitting, our goal would be for what our vision is for this is an inter-school competition. Apple Guard first was in the Brookside, centered around this bike robotics.
Right.
And that would be sometime in the spring, we have to, but that would be ultimately our segue into larger interscholastic competition.
So these are after-school enrichment
Correct.
programs, pay as you go.
Correct.
And back in the day, we would do art tag and science tag exhibitions, competitions, just what I was gonna ask you, not just for this, for any, even cooking. There's just so much that we're doing now that becomes, a way for them to exhibit their stuff. So this is great, and I will let you ask.
And if I could just follow up on one thing. So because we just released, we're doing a lot of our advanced enrichment notifications. Club Code and these enrichment programs operate completely sovereign and differently from our gifted and talented programs. Participation in these programs have no bearing on eligibility. All of our eligibility begins with an objective data analysis pulled from our map data that we acquire throughout the year. And then there is a subjective analysis based on student artifacts that follows a rubric that was created that I presented a couple months ago. So I know that that's sometimes the question, even though because the names kind of interchange. Anything that is after school enrichment is completely separate from gifted and talented services. There's no fee to participate in gifted and talented. That's part of our core existence as a school district. These after school enrichment programs are designed to, one, just give our teachers and our students a chance to get into what they may not be able to get to during the school day, but also to learn at a different pace, learn all some of those 21st century quick skills that we just brought to the middle school.
Yeah.
And give us a feeder program for when things ramp up in the middle school and high school. And that's why it's so important that we do not pigeonhole ourselves into these, we've been cooking and STEM. And I use that term, in some words, that label of STEM probably very poorly because we've made STEM synonymous with our computer science and robotics initiative. It's really beyond that, and there is so much opportunity in this model, even just talking with the staff that want to get on board. And now the next goal for us as a team would be to build capacity in our staff and to expand responsibility.
Good luck.
Thank you.
So I noticed that for our special needs kids, there's something that during ES5, there's opportunities for them to participate. Do we offer any opportunities during the school year as well? Are these open to all abilities?
Absolutely, including our gifted and talented services. We have a separate process for screening for students that are considered PE, voice exceptional. So sometimes those students can slip through the cracks, unfortunately, as we know. And, we really over the last 2 years, special ed department, all of the supervisors, really the building principals have been really careful to make sure that doesn't happen. So gifted and talented, standard enrichment, whether they're outside of the school day or embedded in the school day, all learners apply, and we do have separate mechanisms to make sure that 2E students can get it.
Anybody else, any questions?
And just follow up on that, if there is a need driven by the IEP, we have had situations when we've run enrichment programs where the IEP will ask for something, even though legally we're not, because it's not, we do honor that, we do that throughout the summer, and if there's a situation, we do ask parents, we speak very openly with parents, but we also have the opportunity to delve into the information that we need. If there was an out-of-district situation, that might get a little more complicated, but, we would take that as.
But like the cooking with cancer, that could be open to anyone.
Oh,
right?
yeah, and that was one of the programs we did with this,
but during the school year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Miranda. That was amazing. I'm going to move on to the last item on the agenda, which is the board goals. Every committee was tasked to spend some time and discuss board goals specific to this committee. And I'm going to share my thoughts that I put in, and then I would love for everybody on this table to chime in if you had a thought on that, so that I could then come back to the board president with, this is what the curriculum committee feels. As a starting point, I did use the strategy plan because that's our vision, common vision of where this district is moving to. And I focused on two goal areas, which is leveraging technology and the student excelling, those two goal areas. And after putting a lot of thought into this, I felt like for the next year, as this committee works, the two things that this committee could put more focus on is one, the portrait of a graduate, which is honestly any district's collective vision for student success. Our goal here is to have a common vision starting from pre-K all the way to a senior in the high school. How are we defining student success for them? So it describes the skills and competencies that the community agrees. It's not just us on this table, but as a community, that we agree that as young people, we need to thrive in learning, work, and life in general. So I felt like one of the goals for the board or for this committee in particular should be to teach to the portrait and not to the test. Take a minute to digest that because when I thought of that, I felt like that's exactly what we wanted to accomplish with the portrait of a graduate. So that was one of the thoughts that I had that we could discuss. And the other one was on the technology goal. Given how fast this world is moving towards AI dependence, I feel like this is the committee that will have to bear the burden to promote AI literacy while ensuring ethical use of AI. And I know our staff and the supervisors are already ahead on that war front, but it has to become a committee goal so that we can put that towards every area of curriculum and co-curriculum. So we want to promote AI literacy while ensuring ethical use of AI. And the goal really is, given the diverse learning abilities of students of every caliber, we've been pushing, since I ran for the board, we've been pushing towards, industrial or, all kinds of education for our students that are excelling in AP classes to the students that, are excelling in vocational grade. AI gives us the ability to enhance personalizing. It does. It makes it so much easier than our traditional methods of education. So I feel like if we could start that conversation today, how do we enhance personalized learning with educational experiences tailored towards individual student abilities? So those are the two thoughts that I had, one towards technology and one towards what do we think as a community or graduate. So please feel free to chime in. I'm registering all your thoughts and I'll watch the video again before I submit a summary to Madam President. Any thoughts?
I'd like to just, if I may. So when you think of portrait of a graduate, and that's something that we went together to the school boards and we saw, for many years, there's different, you have the expression jumping on a bandwagon, but in Monroe, we jump on the bandwagon quicker than anybody else. We run, leap, and then jump because we want to make sure we're on the bandwagon prior to any other district. We always do that. One of the things when we started way back when, and we were all together, we talked about backward design. And we always used to say, proper way when you educate children, because it's not about a test, is to begin with the end in mind. And when you say what you just said, that's immediately what I thought. So when you begin with the end in mind, what is the end? And of course, the end is the beginning for our children. It's the end for us with our children, but it's their beginning because they're leaving us. So if we look at that and what we all agree we want the child, the graduate, the portion of the graduate to be, that allows us to then have 100%. And I think it's something that I'm excited that you put because we started talking about all of our goals together, and I think we're all in agreement. And although we have to be respectful of standards, and those standards are evaluated through standardized testing, you can't just get rid of it. I do agree that it has to be about the end result, and it also has to be about the growth. Learning and growth and taking children, because the portrait of a graduate will be very different for each child. So what that portrait looks like for the children will be different, and I'm glad you brought it vocational, because although we are very strong proponents, personally, I'll talk about myself, my own leadership style, my own leadership, big proponent of academia, myself, big proponent of vocational education, because there's a lot of value out there for vocational education as well. And I think it's looking at both sides of the coin. So I think the portrait of a graduate is going to be, and once again, it goes right back to the individualized child. So I think it's great, and the technology goes without saying, because although I still believe there's value in the book, still believe value in the book, I do agree that AI is here to stay. I know I've spoken to Dr. Roselle, and I know that I've spoken to Esmeralda, and I spoke to Dr. Raymond and everybody. I agree with you 100%. We have tools that we have to know are here to stay. We need to take those tools, and the ethics is so important.
It's part of it.
100%. So we already started looking at it, because this is gonna go right into Mrs. Alvarez's, committee. It's gonna be a policy. So it's nothing in isolation, and everything has to come full circle. I think the end results.
The portrait of graduate, it's going to go into Ms. Ratner's committee.
100%.
The community
Yes.
meeting will have to, it's not about what all of us think, it's also about what the parents sitting out there envision.
And it did come up just, the strategic plan, portrait of a graduate was part of it. So I completely agree with you. I think those are two excellent examples.
Any other thoughts? I only have somebody agreeing with me right now. Disagreeing with me.
No, I like it. Great start. And certainly when we bring these, we talk about them at our, not next week at our board meeting, but in November. Get them put right this time. I think it's gonna lead to a very good discussion on what that goal, definitively will look like. I'm thinking like, how are we going to measure our success as a board of working towards a portrait of graduate?
And that links directly to the superintendent's goals, because they go hand in hand, rather, of what exactly that looks like, and how I utilize the concept of SMART goals, so that we have a measurable quantitative and qualitative, but analysis of how did I meet my goals, and my goals should be definitely aligned with the board's goals, because we're all working through the same efforts, and we're all working to the same success. I think it's excellent. Excellent.
We just need to figure out how we're gonna quantify.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, yeah.
Because it's a year goal.
We've got to go,
We don't have to buy
what can be, so when I'm
Right.
looking at the strategic plan, that's a great point, Carmen. Everything has like a 5-year timeline to it.
We have to take it and narrow it down to what a year looks like.
We should quantify whatever we are thinking of as a committee or as a board as a whole. This is the level of accomplishment we want to get to, or this is the milestone on this path that we would like to get to in the next year.
And it always involves R&D, so it's always involved research and development, and what we need, and I agree 100%.
Yeah. One of the things that was in the leveraging technology action initiative timeline was instructional technology, accessibility, and curricular integration, right? And I wrote there as I was thinking, all of this has to now be with an AI lens, and we are in partial implementation phase from now until 2028. But I think we're not changing the course that we are on, we're just adding an additional lens, given where the world and the technology is going. And there are some schools that are way behind us, but there are some districts that have really made a lot of progress it's not an easy thing to adopt. There are so many things to be concerned about. I get it, I do this for a living too, but there is more advantage to it than this. We just have to find the ethical way to empower our students. We don't want them to find the easy way out, but we also want them to be the smartest on the block that uses the technology to their advantage and succeed, right? But if there are no more opinions, we are right on the time. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, Charlie, go ahead.
I just have just one thing. I would really like us as a group, and I know it's really, strategic plan, I think the timeline was 2029, and I'm talking about which we said. And there's so much to be done in that area, in terms of setting, exactly where you want to be, where we're going to get the money, classrooms, that's also an issue. there are a lot of people. But if we're gonna start to move forward, I think 2029, because when I was in that strategic planning group, there were a lot of people who were on that group that were really high on the idea of the pre-K program. And you know what the research is out there. I don't want to tell you. It's very clear that students who go to a pre-K program are really, they're enhanced exceptionally in terms of what they're able to do and able to accomplish because they're so far ahead and their skills are really accelerated to some extent. So I really would like us to start to, we're one of the few districts that do not have a pre-K program. I think we should really.
I can speak on that. So I can speak on that. So first of all, before we go to pre-K, we have to go to kindergarten. Because you don't jump over, so you have to go, not to correct you, but just to enhance what you're saying, that we need to remove it from pre-K. So we've already started having some conversations, myself, Dr. Lehman and Mr. Maralda. So what we're gonna do is, and it will be one of my superintendent's goals, I started also discussing with the president, and we want to go on today, but we mentioned it actually in our previous meeting. What's gonna happen is, we're gonna start looking at it, it has to start with R&D, with the research and development, and we have a demographer that's gonna be coming in. We're gonna start looking at a demographer report we should have by February. It's going to be the conversation of what it looks like to bring kindergarten here. I heard you mention in the last board meeting, I remember you specifically saying something about, the grant money that, let's say, New Brunswick gets. Unfortunately, we are not in this scenario in any way, shape, or form to even compare ourselves to that type of district because we don't get those kind of monies. That being said, however, we need to look and see what is the overall cost, what is the time frame, what would the buildings need? Would every one of the 3 lower elementary buildings have kindergarten? Would we look to maybe only having 2 buildings versus the 3? How do we retrofit the bathrooms? What do we look at as the staff? So I'm already on it. So you'll be happy to know that whether or not it's part of this goal, it is my goal. It is one of my goals.
Also, it has to do with the curriculum.
100%.
What happens then?
It changes the curriculum, right? So if you have that curriculum that falls on kindergarten, then the curriculum has a lot of provided. So first grade, second grade. So, but it's something, even though we have to, well, we don't have to, we chose to have a 5-year plan. It's not a 5-year plan for us. It's on the table for this year to look, to say.
Every little thing, I think you're right, Charlie, we probably need to set up benchmarks. By 2026, we do this, by
Yes,
2027.
and we're gonna have that as
That's
well.
our point. Today's conversation is about what are we accomplishing as a board by next year at this point of time, right?
It's
So,
100% with the benchmark. That's how I see it.
Yes.
thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.